Five. Let's see. Let's see if we are live. Okay, all good. Sorry for the delay there. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday and obviously getting ready for the big game tonight. Yankees Giants to kick off the 2026 MLB season. Obviously, Max Fried on the hill for the Yankees going up against Logan Webb, so it should be a great game. And just can't wait to watch that game tonight, and can't wait to get the 2026 season off and running. Just a couple public service announcements before we get into the show. Last week, I got to speak to Bobby Malone from Yankee Twitter. Great conversation. You could go find that on the YouTube channel. I believe it's still up on my Twitter, but it's going to be coming down soon because this show will be going up. So obviously, try to go on the YouTube if you want to find that. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube currently, subscribe to the channel and like the stream. It really helps us out. And all that good stuff. What we're going to be doing today, which we got a great show. Obviously, we will be going through some bold predictions for the 2020, for the 2026 Yankee season, and I'm going to be kind of running through like what I think is going to happen with the season and some hot takes a little bit, and just kind of some things that we're gonna be looking out for as the season gets underway. We will do kind of a roster breakdown where we'll go through the roster that was obviously put out earlier today by the Yankees for the upcoming season. And then we will have a little bit of an Aaron Judge discussion, which I'm interested to get into later in the show. And then we'll close the show with a quick Giant thing, New York Giant thing about the Jeremiyah Love situation and should or shouldn't the Giants draft a running back at at fifth overall. So yeah, let's get right into it. So some bold predictions for the 2026 Yankee season. So here are 5 bold predictions for the 2026 Yankee season. The first one, the Yankees will win the American League East. And I think that the reason the Yankees will win the American League East is because I think they're the deepest and most talented team in the American League East. I think when you look at these other teams and you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, you look at the Boston Red Sox, I think that they're really good teams. I just don't think they're as good as the Yankees. And I think that ultimately, I think that the Yankees are a better team than the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. When you look at, for instance, the Toronto Blue Jays, right? And I have their roster resource page pulled up here. A lot of injuries for the Blue Jays to begin the season, right? Bieber and Yasavage are on the IL to begin the season. So their rotation, obviously they have Gausman and Cease. But after Gausman and Cease, it's Eric Lawler, Cody Ponce, or Ponce, maybe that's how you pronounce it, and then Max Scherzer, who obviously is like 45 years old, in the fifth starter spot. And I think when you look at the Blue Jays, I really thought the Blue Jays were going to get Kyle Tucker this offseason. Because looking at the Blue Jays now and the team that they're actually putting out on the field for the 2026 season, they lost Bo Bichette, who was one of their best hitters, and they did not replace him with Kyle Tucker. For the entire offseason, I was kind of under the impression, listen, Kyle Tucker's going to be kind of the guy for Toronto. Like, it was rumored, like, everybody thought that ultimately, Kyle Tucker was going to be a Blue Jay, and he ends up obviously signing with the Dodgers. And to me, that really changes the Blue Jays' outlook going into the 2026 season, because you look at the Blue Jay lineup, right? They lose Bichette, and they replace him with Okamoto. And I mean, look, Okamoto might be a good player, but the reality is you lost one of your best hitters and you didn't really replace him. You replaced him with a complete unknown. You go from an all-star caliber player to an unknown. And I think that because of that, I don't love the Blue Jays. You look at the Red Sox, really good rotation, right? Connerly early made the rotation. They have Sonny Gray, they have Ranger Suarez, they have obviously Garrett Crochet. But the lineup tails off. It's not the deepest lineup that you've ever seen, right? You look at the lineup after the top five, which is good, but 6 through 9 in their lineup: Caleb Durbin, Marcelo Meyer, Cidian Rafaela, and Carlos Narvaez. Obviously, a couple former Yankees there. Not exactly great players, right? Durbin, Mayer, Rafaela, and Narvaez are not really world beaters at the plate. Great staff. I love their pitching rotation, and I love their bullpen with Whitlock and Chapman. But ultimately, I think the Yankees are a 94-96 win team this year. I think the Yankees are the best team in the American League East, and I think they win the division. The second bold prediction: Carlos Lagrange by the end of the season is a high leverage reliever for the Yankees in their bullpen. I think that there's a couple of reasons I believe this. First of all, you look at spring training. Lagrange goes out there and I believe he threw 47 pitches over 100 miles an hour, some absurd number. It's clear that he's got the velocity, and there's things that he has to work on from a command perspective in terms of locating his pitches. I think when you look at what the Yankees' weaknesses are this year, they have a lot of issues in the back end of their bullpen. And we're going to get into it when we do the roster breakdown, but 5 through 9 in that bullpen is weak. And I think even with 5 through 9 being, and not only is 5 through 9 weak, but the top part of that bullpen is not the greatest either. I love David Bednar, and I think David Bednar is a great closer, but the Yankees are asking a lot this year out of Camilo Doval. I mean, they're asking a ton this year out of him, right? Because they need him to not only be good, they need him to be like a top flight setup man. And I'm not quite sure that I see that with Camilo Doval. I think I see a good reliever, a guy with a lot of good stuff, but maybe not a high leverage number 2 in a bullpen. So to me, you've got the depth in the rotation. The Yankees have a ton of rotation depth going into this year, and they have guys coming back from injury. Obviously, Garrett Cole's coming back from injury. Carlos Rodon's coming back from injury. You might get Clark Schmidt back in the second half of the season from injury. So to me, there is a lane for Lagrange to come in as a reliever and a high leverage reliever and be that guy that the Yankees use in a postseason series for 2 innings, for 3 innings, kind of in that fireman role. So to me, that's where I see Lagrange kind of impacting the Yankees in the 2026 season. Obviously, he's a young guy. He's 22, 23 years old. You want him to be a starter down the pike, of course. But at the end of the day, I think that he's going to be a high leverage reliever for this team this year, and I think he can be a big impact for the Yankees in 2026 in that role. Number 3, Cam Schlittler gets Cy Young votes in the 2026 season. I really believe Cam Schlittler is the real deal. And it's not just the performance last year. The performance was obviously very good. 2.96 ERA last year. 84 strikeouts in 70 innings, right? If you extrapolate that over 175 innings, which he might not get to 175 innings, but if you extrapolate that over 175 innings, this is a guy that would strike out 200 batters. And there's not many guys that can strike out 200 batters anymore in Major League Baseball. That's what this guy can do. And I just think when you look at him, he's got everything you want in the makeup of an ace. And obviously he's very young. He's entering his first full season. But I think he's got that makeup. He's got the moxie. He's got the dominant kind of stuff that I think a top flight reliever, that a top flight ace type pitcher has. And I think that's why I'm just extremely bullish on Schlittler going into this year. I just think this is a guy who's going to really pop this year. And would it stun me if by the end of the season, this guy is like the second best pitcher in the Yankee rotation behind maybe Garrett Cole? It wouldn't stun me. It would not stun me if this guy is the second best pitcher for the Yankees this year. I think he's that good. I think the makeup is there. I think the stuff is there. Everything about Cam Schlittler, I just really believe in. So that's why I have that. Number 4, Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez is not on the Yankees by the end of the year. I've been on this for a while. I don't think there's a path to Dominguez and Jones both being on the Yankees in the future. I look at this year's Yankee team. You've got Giancarlo Stanton and Trent as the DH. You have Bellinger, Grisham, and Judge as your outfield. Obviously, next year you're not going to have Trent Grisham, and there's going to be a spot. But you will still have Giancarlo Stanton as your DH. I don't think he's going anywhere, spoiler alert. You'll have Giancarlo Stanton as your DH. and you'll have an outfield of Judge and Bellinger, and then your center field spot is open. And that could be Spencer Jones, that could be Jason Dominguez, whatever. I don't see the path for both of them. And I think when you look at the Yankee system, yes, it's pretty deep with pitching prospects. Guys like Elmer Rodriguez, and guys like Carlos Lagrange and Ben Hess, among others. But it doesn't really have a ton of starting pitching depth. The Yankees don't have a ton of offensive depth in their system. And again, I think if the Yankees are going to make a trade at the deadline and they're going to try to make an impact move, I absolutely can see one of Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez, who are not really going to have a path to impacting the Yankees this year. I could see one of those two guys being traded easily. So that's number 4. Number 5, and this one's a little outside a little bit of a bold claim here, but hey, it's bold predictions. I think Giancarlo Stanton hits 40 home runs. I think he hits 40 home runs. And the reason I give these numbers, the reason I think he's going to hit 40 home runs is a couple of reasons. One, I think for the first time in a while, it seems like Stanton is going to attempt to kind of play the full season this year. Last year I think he played 77 games. We knew going into camp that he was not going to be able to play much of that season because of the injuries to his elbows. And he obviously misses a ton of games every year. And he's going to miss games this year, right? I'm not sitting here telling you, hey, Giancarlo Stanton's not going to miss games. I think he's absolutely going to miss games this year. But last year, he hit 24 home runs in 77 games. So if you extrapolate that out in 130 games, which is still missing 32 games, he would have hit 40 home runs. I think Stanton is motivated. Obviously, this bold prediction is extremely dependent on health, right? He has to be healthy. Reasonably. He can't play 78 games again. He's got to play 120, 130 games. But I think if he could get to the 130 game threshold, I think that the guy can hit 40 home runs. I don't think it's that outlandish. So those are my 5 bold predictions for the Yankees. I think the Yankees win the American League East. I think Carlos Lagrange is a high leverage reliever for the Yankees by the end of the season. Cam Schlittler gets Cy Young votes. Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez is traded by the end of the season. And Giancarlo Stanton hits 40 home runs in the regular season. Just one comment before we get into the roster breakdown, and I will pull up the roster. The Yankees are going to be going into, obviously, the season with. Today is such a special day for Major League Baseball. Opening day, there's nothing in any other sport, I think, that compares to opening day. And I talk about a lot of sports on here. I've obviously talked about our New York Football Giants and some NFL topics. I've talked obviously about the basketball and the NBA and things like that. But baseball is my favorite sport. And the reason baseball is my favorite sport is because it's with you every day. It's with you when you're sitting on the couch after a long day of work. It's with you when you go in the car and you turn on the radio. And you have a game one night, and the next night you get to do it all over again. And 6 months in a row, you get to watch a baseball game basically every single night, save for a few off days. And not only is opening day special because of the pageantry and because it's the start of the season, it's the mindset and the idea that you have 6 months ahead of you where you are going to be watching your team play every single night, and you're going to know that, hey, no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to structure my day around the fact that the Yankees are going to be playing at 7:05 on the Yes Network. And that's just so special. And that's what baseball is. You turn the page in the book and you go to the next day, and it's just going to be a new adventure and a new chapter. And that's what baseball is. It's like 162 chapters in a full season. And obviously people love baseball. Some of the casual fans love baseball for the the big moments like the WBC and obviously postseason baseball is extremely exciting. I just love the fact that baseball's every single day, and you just get to sit there and watch it and enjoy it, and it's always there. And that's why I think this is the most special day one of the most special days in sports, and I'm so excited because it's not just about today, but it's about what's to come for the next 6 months. So I did want to say that about opening day. Let's get into the roster. And I pulled this up here, and I will try to share. Let me see if this works here. Um, let's see. Okay, so I think I'm sharing my screen now. Let's see if I can make this. Uh, okay, I think I actually just stopped sharing my screen. But here's the roster that the Yankees have going into the 2026 season. So the catchers on the roster, J.C. Esquera and Austin Wells. No surprise there. Esquera makes the team. I think that ultimately Esquera made the team because the Yankees really don't view Ben Rice as a backup catcher. They view him, I think, as the everyday first baseman and an emergency option, uh, at the catcher spot. So I personally think that's why Esquera made it. No surprise, really. Infielders: Jazz Chisholm, Med Rosario, Ryan McMahon, Ben Rice, Paul Goldschmidt, Jose Caballero. Obviously, Caballero makes the team as a starting shortstop because Anthony Volpe is still on the shelf. Volpe is expected to begin a rehab assignment. I think they said like the second week of April. So, you know, will be interesting to see who kind of, does Volpe get the job back immediately? Does he have to fight for it? Who knows what will happen there. But those are the infielders. Not really a surprise. Outfielders: Trent Grisham, Randall Grichuk, Cody Bellinger, and Aaron Judge. Grichuk obviously was signed, I think like a couple weeks ago. And I really like the move bringing in Grichuk because he really hits left-handed hitters well. So again, not really a surprise. And then the DH is Giancarlo Stanton. And that rounds out the position players. Now for the pitchers, the Yankees are going with a four-man rotation to begin the season. So Cam Schlittler, Ryan Weathers, Max Fried, and Will Warren are the four starters to begin the season. The Yankees don't need a fifth starter until, I believe, like April 11th, April 12th of the season because of the off days that they have early in the season, and they're maximizing, who they think is the four best pitchers. And I don't really have a problem with that. Other pitchers on the team: Yarbrough, Tim Hill, Brent Hedrick, David Bednar, Paul Blackburn, Jake Bird, Fernando Cruz, Camilo Doval, Cade Winquist, and that rounds out the pitchers. Couple broad takeaways that I would say from the roster. The 5 through 9 of the Yankee bullpen is atrociously bad entering the season. Like Brent Hedrick, Paul Blackburn, Ryan Yarbrough, Cade Winquist, like these guys to me are all replaceable. Now I understand Yarbrough and Blackburn, they're kind of like, they're long relievers, but none of these guys really inspire confidence. And that's not even mentioning Tim Hill, who, look, I like Tim Hill, but I mean, when Tim Hill is the fourth best option in your bullpen, you don't have a great bullpen. And I think it's pretty clear that the Yankees don't have a great bullpen entering this season. They're asking a ton out of Camilo Doval. They need a huge bounce back year from this guy if they have any shot in their bullpen. And this is why I mentioned the Lagrange thing. Because again, I just don't see how the Yankees get through the season with this bullpen. Obviously, there's a deadline. You'll make additions. The team is going to look different at the end of the year than it does right now. But at the end of the day, again, the 5 through 9 in this bullpen is not good. The other comment I wanted to make: do the Yankees have like the best AAA roster of all time? Like, I've never seen a AAA roster like this. I really have never seen it. They have in AAA Spencer Jones, Oswaldo Cabrera, Jason Dominguez, Luis Gil. Like, these are MLB players. I mean, in the case of Dominguez, Cabrera, and Gil, I mean, Gil was Rookie of the Year 3 years ago, and now he's in AAA. Dominguez obviously was one of the Yankees' most prized prospects. He's in AAA. Cabrera has been a guy who's been, I believe he debuted in 2022. In August, I think he debuted in the 2022 season. So the Yankees, and I guess I bring this up because it's not like the Yankees have the greatest roster of all time at the MLB level. So it's interesting how they built out their roster. I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but when you look at the guys that the Yankees didn't put on this team, the guys that are currently on the MLB team better perform. Because if guys in the bullpen are not performing, or if Trent Grisham, who has been discussed ad nauseum, is struggling in center field and is not playing well defensively and all those things, people are going to, rightfully so, be pounding the table and saying, hey, where is Jason Dominguez? Where is Spencer Jones? Where are these guys? So, again, that's the roster. I don't have any, I don't think there were any shocks really with the making of the team. But I just think it's notable that the Yankees have some of the best and most kind of promising players in their system in AAA and not on the Major League team. So the question really is, are they taking the best 28-man roster or 26-man roster, with them into the season? And I think that remains to be seen with the performance of some of these guys like Grisham, like some of these guys in the bullpen. So that's the roster. I don't think there's anything, like I said, that crazy about it. Few more things on the Yankees. I saw I forget where it was, but I saw something on Twitter or maybe it was on TV basically saying that Aaron Judge is under the most pressure of any player entering the 2026 season. And I thought about that and I was like, is Aaron Judge under the most pressure of any player in Major League Baseball this year? Like, just thinking kind of through that concept. And I think where I landed with Aaron Judge is this. When Judge played in the World Baseball Classic this year, I think it did more harm than good for him and his image is what I would say. Because I think people watched him in that tournament and it was very heightened on one game. It was very heightened on, it's a one-game sample, it's a one-game series. You normally don't play baseball the way it's played in the World Baseball Classic where it's like, hey, it's one game. It's a quarterfinal, a semifinal, a final. It's not 5-game, 7-game series. It's not the way it normally is played. And there was a ton of pressure on him in those games to not only perform, but to perform in the biggest moments. Because when you look at Aaron Judge's stats in the World Baseball Classic, they were actually good. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I think his OPS was definitely over 800. It might have even been close to 900. And I think he had a couple home runs. He had good moments in the WBC. But he didn't come through in the biggest moments. And that event, I think, highlighted what Yankee fans have kind of seen for a number of years now, where Judge puts up these historic regular seasons. And then he gets to the postseason, and he's not the same player. Now, that changed in last postseason, where Judge went out there and had one of the best postseasons we've ever seen him have, of course, when he went off against the Blue Jays in that series. But still in that series, in that first game, when the Yankees had a big opportunity to get to Gausman in the 6th inning of that game, or the 5th inning of that game, Aaron Judge struck out with the bases loaded and had a bad moment. And obviously that game spiraled, and by the time the Yankees got back to New York, the series was basically over, and the Yankees were done. When you talk about how Aaron Judge is going to be remembered, he's not going to be remembered in the pantheon of Yankee greats if he does not win a world championship. And that is a harsh reality, but it's a fact. It's a fact because when you look at the history of the Yankees, Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle, Jeter, Mariano, Yogi, Munson, these guys all won, and they won championships. And the guy that a lot of people will compare Aaron Judge to is Don Mattingly, because Mattingly never won a World Series, but Mattingly obviously was at the height of his game for many years. He won, MVP awards and things like that, and was one of the best players of his time, but he never won a championship. So you say, well, he'll be, and Don Mattingly is revered amongst Yankee fans. He's remembered very well. But I think part of why he's remembered so well is he didn't fail in the postseason. In fact, as many of you know, he never made the postseason until the final year of his career, because in the 1980s there was no wild card. And it was just the division winner, the number one. There was no like today where it's, wild card one, wild card two, wild card three. No, it was if you win the division, you make the playoffs. If you don't, you don't make it. That's the way it worked. And then obviously in 1995, they put in the wild card. And ironically enough, Don Mattingly, in the one time he made the postseason in his career, he made it as a wild card team. And I was looking this up because I was curious. In that postseason, Don Mattingly hit .417, had a .440 on base percentage, had a .708 slugging percentage, and had a 1.148 OPS in that series. Obviously, it's a small sample size. Obviously, it was 5 games. But the point is, one postseason appearance, and he went off. You compare that to Aaron Judge, and here's where Aaron Judge gets hurt. He's in the damn postseason every single year. Aaron Judge has been in Major League Baseball, I believe he's entering his 9th year. In the previous 8 years, he made the playoffs 7 out of those 8 years. And 7 years, the Yankees were on display for everyone to watch in the biggest games of the postseason. Not in the middle of July against the Tampa Bay Rays when no one's watching. Postseason, October, highest stakes, and Aaron Judge and the Yankees, not just him, have fallen short. And that is the reality that faces Aaron Judge. He's not going to be. He is one of the best Yankees we've ever seen in terms of production. And people have even said when they watch Aaron Judge, they think they're watching, they feel like it's the old days when they're watching Mickey Mantle. And it's like, oh, this is what it would have been like to watch Babe Ruth. And it's warranted because those are the numbers he's put up. But until this guy actually gets it done, and until the team actually gets it done and wins a championship, this is going to follow him. And I think as we enter the 2026 season, there's really nothing Aaron Judge can do in the regular season that's going to change the narrative that is spoken about him. Like, he could hit 70 home runs. He could hit 65 home runs. He could break his own record. If the Yankees lose in the postseason, people are going to say, well, he didn't come up big again. Well, he's a choke artist. And even if it's not necessarily true, the facts are that this guy has not been screwed by a system. This guy's not been screwed by the fact that his team isn't good enough like Mattingly kind of was. This guy has been there every single year and has not won a championship. And until he does win a championship, he's not going to be remembered as one of the greatest of the great Yankees. He'll be remembered because of what he did, and what he did is and what he's doing is remarkable. But he will not be remembered like some of those other guys I mentioned until he wins a championship. In terms of, and a couple more things on the Yankees, and then we will get into the Giants, and then we'll get out of here, and we'll have a great time watching the opening game of the season on Netflix. Can't wait for that. Really exciting stuff. World Series prediction. You asked me what my World Series prediction is. Seattle Mariners over the LA Dodgers in the World Series. I think that the Mariners are the best team in the American League this year. Look at their rotation. Wu, Kirby, Castillo, Gilbert, loaded rotation. And then you look at their lineup. Julio Rodriguez is a really good player. I love the fact that they went out and got Brendan Donovan. I thought it was a big move that they got him. So they obviously have Cal Raleigh, who's the reigning, hit 60 home runs last year from the catcher spot. They've got the lineup. They've got the pitching. Munoz is an elite closer in the back end, even though the Yankees got to him last year. Munoz is elite. I think they've got the best pitching, and I think they have an offense this year that's going to do enough to get them over the hump in the American League. And unfortunately, I think the Yankees again are going to fall short. Now, I hope that does not happen. I hope the Yankees win the World Series. Obviously, I'm a fan. But I cannot sit here and say I would predict the Yankees to win the World Series. I think the Yankees will win the American League East. I think they're a 94, 95, 96 win team. And then I think ultimately, when you get to the postseason, it will be the same story that it has been, for the last 5-6 years, where they're in the dance, but they can't win it all. And I think that ultimately is going to be what happens for the Yankees this season. But I do think the Seattle Mariners are going to win the World Series. I just think that they have everything that you could want from a team going into the season. Pivoting to the Giants, and then we will briefly to the Giants. I know today's about the Yankees, but we'll pivot briefly to the Giants, and then we will get out of here for the night. So the Jeremiyah Love debate is running rampant around Giants Nation, and people have very strong opinions. Some people say, if they draft Jeremiyah Love, I'm gonna, I'm gonna, give away my season tickets. I'm gonna stop watching the team. Other people say, how could you pass on Jeremiyah Love? I mean, I posted a couple things on social media about Jeremiyah Love, and you wouldn't believe the stark contrast in what people say about him. It's either, yeah, how could you pass on Jeremiyah Love? Or it's, how could you take Jeremiyah Love? Here's where I fall in the Jeremiyah Love debate. I would not pick Jeremiyah Love personally at 5th overall. And the biggest reason for that is actually not Jeremiyah Love himself. It's the way the Giants roster is currently built. The guy I use as a great example is Saquon Barkley. There is no running back, probably in the history of football. That might be an exaggeration. There's very few running backs in the history of football that are a better prospect than Saquon Barkley was. The famous Dave Gettleman line, he was touched by the hand of God. Saquon Barkley is a generational running back prospect. Jeremiyah Love is a good running back prospect. He might even be a great running back prospect. I struggle to think that he's as good of a running back prospect as Saquon Barkley. Okay, why do I bring up Saquon Barkley? I have written down here the yards per carry in Saquon Barkley's career, going back to his rookie year with the Giants, as an explanation as to why I would not take a running back with the Giants' current iteration of their team. Here are the yards per carry by season. 5, 4.6, 3.7, 4.4, 3.9, 5.8, and then 4.1. Now, where's the outlier there? The outlier is the 5.8. What happened that year? He went to Philadelphia. They had one of the best offensive lines in football. They had one of the best offenses in football. He flourished and had one of the great running back seasons we've seen. But then the very next year, basically the same guy, right? I mean, yeah, you say he's older. I mean, he's 1 year older, right? 1 year is not really doing much. The same running back, same team. He ran for 4.1 yards a carry as compared to 5.8. Saquon Barkley, who is as talented, as I said, as any running back we've seen. Unfortunately, running back is the one position where, yeah, you need a good running back. And quite frankly, if you have a star running back, that's great. Guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like Saquon Barkley, these are great players. And you see it, they have great production. But a big reason they have great production, it's not dependent on them, it's dependent on their offensive line. And the Giants' offensive line right now, the interior of the offensive line, as we speak today, John Runyon, John Michael Smits, and the right guard, I don't know who's going to play right guard next year. Maybe I'll play right guard, or maybe you'll play right guard. I don't know. Right now, the right guard is Evan Neal. I don't know who it is. Now, you expect that they're going to bring back Greg Van Roten, and they'll have the same line as last year. And the line last year, you say, well, it was a good offensive line. Well, not exactly. It was a good pass-blocking offensive line, but it was not a great run blocking offensive line. And John Runyon is a below average run blocker. You look at Pro Football Focus, you look at all those metrics, and they obviously don't have a right guard right now. John Michael Schmitz, he's kind of an average center. If you draft Jeremiyah Love at 5th overall, you're kind of repeating the mistake that the Las Vegas Raiders made last year when they took Ashton Jeanty. And they said, well, I think they took him 8th overall. I could be wrong. But they said, well, Ashton Jeanty is a generational running back prospect. Why wouldn't we take him? Look at what happened. He had a terrible season, and the Raiders were awful and got the number 1 pick. The reality with a running back, and look, Jeremiyah Love is a extremely highly rated player. Daniel Jeremiah, who I really respect, he does a ton of draft stuff. He ranked him as the 2nd best player in this class, only behind Fernando Mendoza. So when you talk about best player available, Jeremiyah Love might be the best player available. And I actually don't think the issue is taking the running back. I think the issue is when you look at this interior of the offensive line, it's not good enough to be able to say we're going to invest a premium pick, the 5th overall pick, in a running back when you don't even know if you're going to be a good run blocking O-line next year. So that's why I would not do it. For as sexy as it would be, and for as enticing as it is to, in a draft with not a lot of blue chip prospects, to get the number 1 kind of player outside of Mendoza in the class, that's enticing in a draft that's not great at the top. Not a lot of, all-pro type talents. I still think the Giants need to practice restraint here and not take Jeremiyah Love. Continue to build the team. Once you get a really good offensive line, then yes, you can go out and you can draft whoever you want. But if you draft Jeremiyah Love behind that line, you see it with Saquon Barkley. 1 year, 5.8 yards a carry. 1 year, 4.1 yards a carry. What's the difference? The difference is the offensive line. So to me, I would not invest that kind of capital in Jeremiyah Love. But we will have a ton more time to go into the Giants as we get closer, obviously, to the draft. The draft is now less than a month away. We will get into that completely as we get closer. So that's the show. Let's go Yankees. I can't believe the season is here. And I just am so excited to watch this team tonight and obviously watch this team over the next 162 games. It's like I said, it's one of the best days of the year, and hopefully we can get it started with a win tonight. Again, if you're watching the video on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It really helps us out. Like the stream. We'll be back next week with another live stream talking New York sports, and hope everyone has a good rest of their week. And I will see you all soon.